Welcome to the second edition of World Cashew Convention. I'm Chandana Shiv and I'm from cashewinfo.com, and with me I have Jim Fitzpatrick from Ingredient Sourcing Solutions. Welcome to WCC, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you please elaborate about the growth of cashew consumption in India, in US and European markets?
We live in good times in that sense. We see growth both in the European market and the United States market in recent years. Much to our surprise. 10 years ago, had you asked me that question, I would have been a little bit pessimistic. We thought the market was mature, that we'd seen growth and that it would slow down. But now, driven by healthy eating concerns, by a great interest in natural ingredients, particularly in the whole area of nuts and dried fruits, we see surprising levels of growth. Some markets in Europe are growing at levels of 20% per annum. Overall, we've seen a growth in cashews in Europe, on average about 12% over the past 4 years. The US market also has been growing. The US market has long surpassed levels that were expected as of a mature market, and again driven by healthy eating patterns, greater levels of snacking, and this interest in natural ingredients. We see growth in the United States market varying between 5 and 10% per annum. The US as a whole is a larger consumer of cashew nuts, taking in the region of 135,000 tonnes a year compared to 100,000 tonnes in Europe. The outlook remains good. We don't see any reason for growth in Europe to slow down. We think that the US market will continue to grow at these levels, provided we get reasonable stability in prices. Volatility in prices is very disruptive for demand growth. And if we get the volatility that we saw between 2008 and 2011 returning, we could see the whole thing slow down again. But fundamentally, if we talk about nuts, and particularly if we talk about cashew nuts, we're looking at a very positive situation for the foreseeable future.
Yes. So why do you think Vietnam dominates in both of these markets?
Vietnam has come to the market only 25 years ago, at a time when we started to see this growth really take off. And essentially at a time of growth, the key thing is to have product.
Right.
Vietnam grew its processing industry and now has become, in the last 5 or 6 years, an importer of raw nuts. At a time of growth, at a time of volatility, simply having product in hand is enough to enter the market.
Right.
At the same time, we've seen India grow as a domestic market. And of course, processing naturally turns to its domestic market, which is a higher price market and a market for all kinds of grades, including the broken grades,
Yes.
which are more difficult to sell in Europe or the United States. So it is remarkable and it's dramatic. I mean, if we look at figures towards the end of 2015, in the month of November, the US imported 70% of their cashew nuts from Vietnam.
Yes, sir.
For 11 months in 2015, Europe imported 68% of the cashew nuts from Vietnam.
Yes.
So you have two things. You have an aggressive, outward-looking, developing processing industry on the one hand. You have a processing industry developing a domestic market on the other hand. And consumers and manufacturers hungry for product.
Right.
So on the day, if you've got the product, I'm going to buy from you. It so happened that it was Vietnam found themselves in that position.
Right. And also, sir, as the overall consumption of the tree nuts have increased, so what do you think is the percentage of cashews and what are the preferences, sir? What do they prefer?
I think we can say in the United States that cashews is probably the nut of choice. They always used to say that mixed nuts, which are important in the US, sold because of the cashew content. So if you reduced the almonds or if you reduced the Brazil nuts, you wouldn't get a consumer reaction. But if you reduce the percentage of cashew nuts, you would get a consumer reaction to that. So the United States, I think we could say it's the nut of choice. In Europe, certainly as a high quality snack nut, cashews is right up there. I would have to say that almonds have made inroads in recent years through very high levels of promotion, particularly using health claims. And this is very important. So we talk of the overall driver of growth in consumption being healthier eating, and particularly healthier snacking.
Right.
And then we talk about a product like almonds, which brings forward health benefits as part of their marketing package. We don't do that in cashews so far.
Right.
And in that sense, we have to pay more attention if we want to grow the market share for cashews. Still, I would say cashews is volume-wise lagging behind a little bit. There is an opportunity for an increase, and there's absolutely no reason why cashews shouldn't grab more and more of the growth in the market.
So do you think there is a demand for value-added products if you just remove cashew as a single ingredient rather than a mixture of nuts?
There's a lot of ways to add value. We all add value in the sense that processing, assembly, looking after the food safety, certification, these all are ways of adding value. But I think you're asking me more or less about processed products.
Right.
Processed products remain difficult for the US or the European market because demands in terms of food safety, manufacturing practice, the certification of the factory and the product, these are very high level of demands. Once you move into that area of secondary processing, packing for delivery to the final consumer, you move into areas where the bio requirements become that much higher. So on the one hand, is there an opportunity for small niche market players? I've no doubt there is. Is there an opportunity for large mass market players from origins like India or from Vietnam directly into the European market at the moment? I think that's still some time away. I would like to see more attention to food safety in existing processing plants before they move to the next stage.
Right.
Do I see it as a progression in the future? Certainly, I think so. But we need to get these aspects on quality, food safety, product presentation. We need to get all of that right to manage all of the risks in those areas. Once we go into consumer packs, we talk about a completely different profile of marketing and of risk. And it's key that those issues are addressed before processors would attempt to enter those markets with those packs. Meantime, for the niche player, specialized products, perhaps organic, perhaps flavored cashews, why not? I see every opportunity.
Yes. What according to buyers is quality, sir? Kernel buyers.
Quality is a whole range of contributory factors which come together. We go from the basics of the specification of the product. So today we find in the food ingredients business that suppliers and buyers develop the specification together. We find that quality is every bit as much part of process management as it is of just the simple physical characteristics of the product. We must adhere to the law. So if we talk about the European market, we talk about aflatoxin, we talk about one-step traceability, we talk about the right kind of packaging. All of these things are quality. It's not just simply about that's a good cashew nut or it's not a good cashew nut. It's about a whole range of factors which allow us to develop a product which is low risk, high characteristics of taste, appearance, and all those things the consumer look for, and still adheres to the basic legal requirements, which in Europe are complex.
Right.
We see in the United States, quality again is not just the physical characteristics of the product, it's the whole area of the process to meet the new legislation in the Food Safety Modernisation Act. So processors, I feel, have to think about not only what they do, but how they do it, how they behave in the market, their environmental and social responsibilities, if they want to meet these buyers' requirements. And if, going back to your last question, if they want in time to develop into the value-added markets.
Right.
These are key things. So the days of just thinking about a 320 as a product of the right colour and taste, those are gone. Much more involved now, much closer, much more complex relationships, which require more work, more planning, and better management.
Right. So is there an awareness created about the health benefits of cashew in these markets?
I think we lag behind on this aspect. There have been one or two interesting studies specifically about cashew nuts. There are many studies which refer to edible nuts as a range of products, and you'll see studies on Brazil nuts, you'll see studies on almonds, you'll see studies on the consumption of nuts as a contributory factor in good heart health.
Right.
But there are only, to my knowledge, 1 or 2 studies specifically related to cashew nuts. Now, if we think, and you talk in any of the countries growing cashew nuts, all of those years, there are many, many stories in India about the healthy benefits of cashew nuts. But for manufacturers and marketers to make something of that, we need the research. We need something we can base that on. Because making a health claim is much more than saying, this is good for you. It has to be verified. It has to be based on research, and then it can be transformed into a marketing tool. And that's what we need. And at the moment, I feel we lag behind. So whereas there might be, let's say, an awareness of the product, that awareness for the time being is related more to the general healthy profile of edible nuts than it is to the specific characteristics that may or may not relate to cashew nuts.
Right.
I think they're good for you, but I have to be able to prove it.
Right. And what do you look for from WCC, sir?
I see honest dialogue here. I see good exchange of views. I see some of the gaps in market information which have been there for so long in our industry being addressed. I see quite a positive outlook. I'm particularly taken with the discussions on the improvement in quality of the raw cashew nuts. I thought it was a very interesting discussion this afternoon on advance in shelling technologies. I think that we need more transparency, we need more dialogue, we need better communication, and an event like this can only assist in all 3 of those. So yeah, I enjoy it, of course, but I think it also has positive impacts. And as we walk away, we have to make sure that we take the messages, that we take what we've learned, and we follow up on these things in all of our businesses and our day-to-day activities. And in a way, that's up to you at Cashew Info, that you continue the project and that you continue the publishing of the information beyond the conference to give us all these timely reminders of what took place here.
We'll try to keep it up, sir.
I hope you will.
Thank